Welcome to Wrasslin Raw! Alright, you're listening to Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when Raw became war and Attitude ruled. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Arico. I'm looking to rip out some medulla oblongata. Joe Giammatteo.
You know, nobody glorifies criminal conduct like the Americans do.
So true. I'm the one and only Jason Bartlett, and we're going to examine WWE history one episode of Raw is War at a time. In this episode of Wrasslin Raw, we're going to be talking about the Raw that aired on March 24th, 1997. This Raw was recorded at the Metro Center in Rockford, Illinois, and features Vince McMahon, Jim Ross, and Jerry the King Lawler on commentary. Are you guys ready?
I'm ready.
Ready.
All right, then, let's get into it. Things kick off with some explosive pyro and balls of flame into the air. It continues to feel like we've come home with that intro. Vince welcomes us in typical roaring faction to match that pace and tenor. We'll have the new WWF champion, The Undertaker, tonight. Mankind is in the house, and when Jerry Lawler says that the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels is here, Vince involuntarily lets out a, "Oh," and grins and blushes. Also, we'll have a very special interview with Bret Hart scheduled later on tonight. And with all of that, we will go into our first match of the night. The Headbangers, Mosh and Thrasher, defeat the British Bulldog and Owen Hart by disqualification in 12 minutes, with the Bulldog and Owen retaining the WWF Tag Team Championship as a result. Between the 3 belts and 2 slammies, I love all of the gold on Owen and the Bulldog. The King even goes so far as to mention that specifically. They just cut quite an image with all of that gold draped all around them. Things felt a little stilted at first with Mosh and Owen, up until the tabletop double team from the Headbangers. That looked pretty cool. And then we got Pitcher in Pitcher, Hawk and Animal, the Legion of Doom. Animal gave us a high-octane response to Vince, stating that they want the tag titles. And then Animal kicks it on over to Hawk, who starts with, "Well, we want to rip out some medulla oblongata and the brainstem." And I popped hard. We got a side screen graphic advertising a match later tonight between Bart Gunn and Hunter Hearst Helmsley with Chyna. And man, we are getting closer and closer to DX with this look here. Chyna already has the look, with the sunglasses and the black gear up there. Hunter's getting there. Instead of a red velvet robe or something equally ridiculous, he's got on like a Nehru shirt and blazer there in the graphic. The tension between Owen and the Bulldog was highlighted a lot in this match, with Owen walking out on the match going into a commercial break. But Owen came back when we came back. This was definitely making my taint a bit chapped. I loved Vince referencing that it's taken almost 10 minutes for the smoke from all the pyro to start clearing out of the arena. Good to know that noxious chemical is just sitting on all of the children there. We got a really weird extended silence from commentary around the 1-900 Shameless spot. There must have been some kind of production confusion there. In the ring, we got a gut-wrench suplex from Owen on Thrasher. That looked great. And we got some taint teasing between Owen and the Bulldog that was more of the same until referee Earl Hebner tried to step in and separate them, causing the Bulldog to shove Earl Hebner across the ring and to the mat. I fucking popped seeing his ass go down. But that was crossing the line for Hebner, who calls the disqualification. The argument doesn't stop, though, as Owen and the Bulldog start going at it like 2 kids on the playground, all over each other with multiple officials pulling them apart. I have to admit that it felt great to see them get to that point. I have wanted this for so long, and I got goosebumps when it was finally delivered to us. After the pull apart, Owen got a microphone and lets everyone know his opinion. The bottom line is that Owen wants a title match for the European title. Things kind of fall apart there, with promos between the two of them, though. It took a lot longer than it should have, but at some point soon, there will be a European title match between the two. Vince keeps calling this the divorce. And guys, I really hope it's safe to say that the taint tickling is finally over with this. This match, I feel like it was just background noise to the real payoff, that being the divorce. Joe, what did you think of our show opener here?
Well, to open up the show, there's already a drastic difference in these crowds. I mean, this crowd is hyped. They have a shit ton of signs out there. I read in the Wrestling Observer this was actually a sold-out show. You know, you're already seeing those Attitude Era type crowds already, which is great. And JR also told us that Mankind is the #1 contender for the title. Pretty interesting. It must be softball season, because wouldn't Sid get a rematch? I guess not. So looking forward to Mankind getting another shot at the title. We really enjoyed his last shot against Shawn Michaels not too long ago, so that's exciting. Mm-hmm. On to the match. I mean, there's really nothing too great about the match, I didn't think, but the LOD interview was interesting, as always. Hawk with a live mic is always good stuff. Very bizarre. And Earl Hebner getting thrown on his ass is already in the running for my highlight of the show, so we'll see where I land later in this episode here. And yeah, the fight between British Bulldog and Owen Hart, I didn't think it was that great. Once again, you know, our taints are chapped. And, you know, now that we know what happens eventually, and I'm sort of wondering if this is when these guys are fighting and Bret Hart kind of like tells them to stop fighting, and that's how we kind of get the Hart Foundation going. But yeah, I'm not sure if that's what is happening here, but I'm guessing that's what it is.
I'm going to start all the way at the beginning, at the intro. They added the stone cold gushing blood face as the last image of the intro. So way to get that in there already one night later. So that was pretty great. Yeah, as far as the match itself goes, I agree that it was nothing spectacular, but it wasn't bad either. The Headbangers have continued to show that they know what they're doing in the ring. Like, you know, when they're in there with the tag team champs, it doesn't come off as that they're a bunch of jobbers. You know, they look like they could be competing for the belts. But the match was really not what we're here for tonight. This is the conclusion to months and months worth of taint tickling, where they finally bring it to a head and have a fight with each other. So I agree with both of you that it maybe didn't come off great and could have came off better, but I am thrilled that it has finally happened and we're not going to be teased with it anymore. So I thought that was pretty good. And then probably all of our favorite point when Earl Hebner got shoved on his ass. He got up and had a knee injury somehow. I don't know. He went to the school of fake knee injuries by Shawn Michaels, I guess, because he got up and was like holding his knee and hobbling, and at no point did he even like twist. He flew straight back onto his ass, and I don't know, his knee got hurt. But whatever. It was good to see him get tossed down like the bitch he is. And then we find out we're going to have a match between the two for the European title. And the thing that came off a little bit odd to me is Bulldog even pointed it out, like, Owen, I beat you in the tournament for the belt. You know, what claim do you even have to it? You had it there. I beat you for it. But whatever. Match between them two isn't going to disappoint, I don't think. So I'll watch that. But I am happy this is finally done, even though it could have been done a little bit better.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Something that I thought of just now, it's almost like, because, you know, you were mentioning the Bulldog asking what Owen has done to deserve this. And it made me realize that Owen is almost like the lie, cheat, and steal Eddie Guerrero, like 10 years ahead of time. I'm not saying it's a direct one-to-one comparison, but they're the same type of heel. You know, Owen's got all of these slimy ways, because he wasn't even nominated for the second Slammy, but somehow he ended up with it anyway.
Right.
So, you know, he's always got these little things that he's pulling out to lie, cheat, and steal his way into some gold, so looking forward to what happens with that. As far as Earl Hebner goes, you're right. I loved it. And I kind of was wishing that he would have done like a Dickie Murdoch at the Royal Rumble and just like rolled out of the ring and kept on rolling up the entryway out of the building. Whoop, 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 whoop. All right. Back in the arena, commentary found Mankind. Mankind sitting in a boiler room type area, saying that he will challenge The Undertaker for the title at the next pay-per-view. But Uncle Paul is gone. Paul Bearer must have left Mankind alone there. Mankind thinks that Uncle Paul should come back because Mankind does not want to have to come and find him. It was during this interaction that it sunk through to me that Mankind was now the new #1 contender. But besides that, I mean, there really isn't too much to take away here. This was brief. So, Joe, just again, briefly, Paul Bearer has seemingly abandoned Mankind. What's up with that?
I don't know. I hope we get to find out. But when Mankind said he's gone at the beginning, I was hoping that he was referring to his tag team partner, Vader. But unfortunately, he was talking about Uncle Paul.
We meet up with Mankind here, and it brings us back to some of those promos that we saw quite a while ago from him. You know, we haven't seen one of these creepy Mankind promos in a little bit, so it was good to see it back. I liked it.
Agreed. Something else that we're going to like, though, maybe, is our next match. Hunter Hearst Helmsley with China defeats Bart Gunn by pinfall in 7 minutes and 16 seconds. Bart Gunn got the jobber treatment to start this. Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't Bart Gunn already a jobber of the week?
You know what? He was, but you're catching me off guard. I didn't look up to see what episode, so I apologize in that.
No worries. It's ultimately forgetful, much like the man himself. Hate to say it. He was already in the ring and waiting when we came back from commercial. But then also Bret Hart was up on the Titantron. I guess Bart was just going to have to stand around and wait a little bit longer. Bret wanted to get some things off his chest, and he wanted to make sure he got the opportunity to do that. Vince assures him that he will get that later. Then when it's time for Hunter to come out, once again, China looking amazing. Hunter looking like he needs to get the fuck out of that gimmick. And when the action finally starts, it doesn't look too bad. You know, despite the lack of charisma, Bart Gunn is a great worker, in my opinion. I've held that opinion for quite a while, and I will continue to say so. So is Hunter Hearst Helmsley, though. So this wasn't too bad, all things considered. I mean, you got to keep this in the context of a jobber match. We got a picture-in-picture with Goldust sitting next to an empty director's chair. I thought Goldust's promo here was great. Next week, Goldust will meet Hunter Hearst Helmsley one-on-one, and China kept up what's been working for her in that she was standing and staring with her arms crossed this entire time, not moving. Unfortunately, though, not long after I noted that, Bart Gunn gave another Howard Dean woohoo, and that's what inspired China to finally interfere and put this man out of his misery. She pulled the rope down during some rope work so Bart would fall out of the ring. China then body slams Bart at the outside, then picks him up and rams Bart into the corner post before Hunter drags Bart back into the ring. I was popping my ass off, and then unfortunately we got a replay of China botching the rope pull, even though we didn't see the botch before. But we worked through it anyway. Hunter got the pedigree from there, getting the win. China poses in the ring with Hunter, just the whole scene looking fantastic. Ryan, I thought this was a great match. Like I've said before, we get more and more of China as the weeks go by. This time we got some actual physical evidence of violence and wrestling from China. What did you think of this?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. And as you stated, you know, for what it was, you know, you knew the moment Bart got cut off by Bret Hart up on the Titantron that he was going to get the jobber treatment. And he does. But in between that, we get a pretty good match. We both, I think all three of us have said in the past, Bart Gunn is a good ring worker. And of course, Hunter is. We've been talking him up for long enough. And because of that, these two guys work pretty well together in the ring, and they put together a good jobber match. China interferes, and yeah, I thought it was kind of funny that they showed the replay so that we could see she botched the rope down pull, but outside of that, the body slam looked great, and then that tackle into the ring post looked fantastic too. A little hiccup from China there, but she made up for it, I thought. And then, of course, the match goes exactly as we thought from the beginning. Bart jobs out and Hunter gets the win. But I thought a good way to just continue China's story, because that's kind of what we're doing now. We know what Hunter is and what he's about. This is all about setting up China, and I think it's doing a good job. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, like you said, all things considered, I thought this was okay. Yeah, it's building up Hunter and China, and it's even adding on to this Hunter versus Goldust feud. Even though their matches haven't been great, it's still, I think China is kind of giving that a little bit of life. We saw her at WrestleMania do another ragdoll on Marlena, so it's keeping it somewhat exciting. So I guess it's something to look forward to. Goldust versus Hunter Hearst Helmsley, and Vince McMahon noted that it was for the Intercontinental Championship, and so he doesn't even know who the Intercontinental Champion is right now, which is Rocky Maivia, and JR had to correct Vince. China destroying Bart Gunn outside the ring was beautiful, and I'd love to see her do that to Earl Hebner.
Oh, yes. Oh, just the idea. All right, guys. Well, we can't ride the good feelings forever. Let's get through our next match. Los Cadetes del Espacio. That's Discovery, Supernova, and Venom, something like that. Defeats Abismo Negro, El Mosco, and Hysteria by pinfall in 4 minutes and 13 seconds in a 6-man tag team match.
Because that's the only way they could wrestle, 6-man tag team matches.
This was fucking terrible from the start. Thankfully, we immediately went to Bret Hart in picture. Bret was whining about wanting time to talk. He threw out a nice shut up Lawler in there. But that just didn't last long enough to help me block out this match. There was a lot of miscommunication and what looked like botches in this, which personally I find very ironic because they could have been spot calling this entire match there in the ring and nobody would have known because they'd be speaking a completely different language. You know, there's just a long list of things here. I'm not going to go through everything point by point that I hated, but to just kind of sum it up, I thought I hated Flash Funk's ring gear. This shit was ridiculous. There's too much going on in the ring there. Every single move was telegraphed. There were multiple points where the two competitors in the ring would just stop what they're doing and walk away from each other to tag in someone else. There were spots where someone would stand there and wait to catch someone coming off of the top rope. Basically everything that I hate in wrestling was in this match. After an almost botched Hurricane Rana where the victim stood around waiting for it for a minute, we had the pin and then this match was over. Joe, I fucking hated this. This is where I definitely would have changed the channel over to where the good lucha wrestlers were. What did you think of it?
Yeah, I honestly don't really know what else to add that you haven't said already. I guess this is just another example of a weak-ass attempt to compete with WCW's cruiserweights. The crowd was fucking dead for this whole thing, especially the entrance. Like, you could tell, like, the crowd is just like, who the fuck are these guys? We have no idea. That's what it is. I mean, it's just a match that has absolutely zero story behind it or anything like that. I'm not sure why it's on TV, to be honest. I don't know why it's not just a dark match or something.
As you said, if they're trying to compete with WCW, why have no build-up for these guys either? Like, every time we see them try and have one of these AAA matches, it's completely cold. Just out of nowhere, never met any of these guys, and we're supposed to care about it. And then in this one, man, there was some shitty-ass wrestling here. I mean, some of the spots that they were telegraphing, and at times, you would see an opponent, like, grab the hand of someone and like put it on their body where they wanted him.
Like they're dancing.
Yeah.
Dance lessons.
It was bizarre. Like it was these guys' first or second time in the ring. Their outfits, the only thing I could think of was Power Rangers. They look like the villains in Power Rangers with all the crazy get-ups that they had going on here. And there were a couple guys, I think Venom, he was probably the best one there, the one in green. His high-flying moves were actually landing, but I think he was the only one out of the 6 that had any move that actually looked like they were landing. So, yeah, this is another huge miss with these lucha wrestlers, with them getting bottom barrel, low tier luchas to come into here because WCW has taken all the good ones. And they just shove it in front of us. And Joe, like you stated, why this wasn't a dark match is beyond me.
Yeah. Yeah, and even if there's some kind of like contractual obligation to have it on TV, throw it on fucking Superstars, you know?
Yeah.
Something. Yeah. Not here though. Good God. All right, let's get away from that. Let's go to happier times. Earlier tonight in the empty arena, Vince was there interviewing Rocky Maivia and Rocky Johnson, a father-son tandem interview here. This was mercifully short. Rocky Johnson doesn't know if Vince McMahon would have bought him a ticket to WrestleMania, but he was bound to be there, and Rocky Johnson promises to never interfere in one of Rocky Maivia's matches ever again. They finish this up with a hug. Like I said, short. So short, in fact, that this was almost useless. They couldn't possibly have hoped to achieve anything with this in terms of storytelling or getting over this whole father-son thing or Rocky. I'm not sure what the point of it was. Joe, what did you think of it, please?
Yeah, the whole father-son story stuff kind of sucks for the development of Rocky Maivia, but I guess I understand why they're doing it. They kind of feel like they have to do that with every wrestler like that. And, you know, the other thing is, it's like they're treating Rocky Maivia like with kid gloves, like, because he's so young, you know, they don't want to just like let him do his thing. They kind of have they're like micromanaging him and making sure that he's got what it takes first, which happens everywhere. You know, every fucking corporate job, the new young person comes in. It's like, well, you know, whoa there, partner. Don't be trying to push out all us old guys, especially in a fucking alpha sport like wrestling.
With the way that they're trying to push him now, and in this shitty scene of him and his dad hugging each other and saying how proud he is of him, like, die, Rocky, die, is all I could think. You know, I mean, It was like, I could see it now. We talked about it.
Fueling the die chance.
We talked about it last week during WrestleMania. We understand. And every week I'm understanding more and more.
Yeah, it's kind of just unfortunate because Rocky wasn't doing that bad on his own. I mean, they needed to slow it down a little bit, but now they've given him these two gassed up training wheels in Rocky Johnson and Tony Atlas, like, over the past couple weeks. It's just ease up, please, for the love of God. But you know what? Something that they should never ease up on is the Honky Tonk Man.
Oh.
The Honky Tonk Man joined commentary for our next match. Joe, I heard your pain. I felt it through the microphone. Flash Funk defeats the Brooklyn Brawler by pinfall in 3 minutes and 7 seconds. Ryan, the Brooklyn Brawler, he was a jobber of the week once, wasn't he?
Yeah, I was behind on my duties looking this up, but yes, he was absolutely a jobber. And if you remember, he was the Duke of Jobbers.
The Duke of Jobbers, that's
right. The Duke
right.
of Jobbers. So.
Steve Lombardi, the chemist.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, my God, the Funkettes, they learned some new moves, and they looked amazing. There was a lot of focus on the Honky Tonk Man during the entrances. Joe, I was again thinking of you throughout. Condolences. Honky Tonk wants to turn the Funkettes into Honkettes.
Oh.
And I haven't really touched upon the match because the match was not great. Not great at all. And that's where I'll leave it. Flash won with a 360 splash with the Honky Tonk Man yelling, "Move, Lombardi!" while Funk was still in the air. Ryan, with all the changes that Raw has been going through, we've been highlighting them here in the podcast, it's really off-putting to just out of nowhere get what felt like a shitty early 90s cartoon match like this. What did you think of it?
Yeah, I mean, and from both ends, too. Both people are just ridiculous in this match. The Brawler and Flash. The Funkettes, I'm going to give them props. They have found the exact spot down that ramp to watch to just get out of reach all those thirsty teenagers reaching for them. Yeah. So props to them. Also, props to Lawler on that wonderful dad joke about the Brawler when he says someone once told him to not ever change and he thought he meant the clothes. Perfect. But yeah, the match was an absolute throwaway, and as you said, reminded you of like a 93 Doink the Clown versus the Brooklyn Brawler or something type match. So nothing special here, but hey, Lombardi got some work, so I'm happy.
Yeah, it was nice to see the Brooklyn Brawler again. We haven't seen him in a while, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, been quite a while.
That's all I have. That's all I have to say.
Honky was probably the most entertaining part about this, and that's not saying much.
He was just yelling the whole time.
Well, yeah, I mean...
So the thing that took me completely out of it, the Honky Man, he changed his story up here. At the beginning of the match, he said the Funkettes asked to become Honkettes, and he said, no, you're not ready. Then, in the middle of the match, he says, I'm going to turn the Funkettes into Honkettes. So which one is it, Honky? Keep your fucking story straight.
Oh my God. We're to that point where we're debating Honky Tonk Man's credibility in 1997.
It's shattered. He has none.
Well, you can think that. I still have hope that the Honky Tonk Man will find some kind of promising young up-and-comer to groom into the next big thing, the next big superstar. Somebody that he's already passed on, however, was Ken Shamrock. Ken Shamrock popped up on the Titantron here for us. Vince wanted to know why Ken Shamrock stopped the submission match after Stone Cold had passed out. Vince tries to pin Shamrock down with the fact that Austin never said, "I quit." But Shamrock correctly retorts, "Well, you hired me to be a referee, so when I thought he could no longer defend himself, I had to call it. That's my job as a referee." It kind of felt like Ken was left to his own devices to answer these interview questions. This fell a lot flatter than some of the recent promos and interview segments with Shamrock, in my opinion. And it was at this point that we went through the Raw is War intro again to enter into the second hour of the episode. Just in case anybody's out there keeping track, we blew through most of our match card in the first hour. So there's not a whole lot of wrestling left. A whole lot of storytelling remains, but not too much wrestling. Speaking of that storytelling, we came back from that intro to JR in the ring to welcome Bret Hart, and my lord, Bret Hart has some things to say. The crowd response to Bret was very mixed at the start. Heel Bret Hart is getting over here if he's getting people to boo him. Bret apologizes to his fans worldwide, but to his fans in America, Bret apologizes for nothing. Bret addresses the way the American fans have been treating him, going all the way back to Wrestlemania XII, when he got screwed out of the title in the Iron Man match, and then running up through the present in all of the various ways and means that he's been screwed. Vince says that Shawn didn't pose for a girly magazine, he posed for a gay magazine. Oh boy.
No, he's not wrong.
Yeah. This was a very long promo, so I am keeping it short here, but what it amounted to is Bret is sick of getting screwed by everyone in the WWF, and now the fans too. The American WWF fans can kiss Bret's ass. That's when Shawn Michaels comes out, comfortably walking down to the ring, comfortably cutting a promo as he climbs the ring stairs, comfortably climbing through the ropes, and actually gave a pretty great promo in response to Bret's claims. He addressed all of Bret's critiques here, and again, a very long segment with Shawn Michaels here on the mic, so there's a lot of detail I'm leaving out, but Shawn ends it with an offer to go right now, and then turns his back to walk out when Bret doesn't immediately respond. That gives Bret the opening to kick Shawn in the knee, drag Shawn to the corner, and throw the sharpshooter on around the ring post. It looked like Bret made it a point to get the toe of his boot firmly up into Shawn Michaels' balls while they were doing this, drawing many officials and giving Vince McMahon an aneurysm. But then Psycho Sid came out for some reason. I guess maybe to defend Shawn Michaels? I don't know.
Joe, say it.
What's that?
Thank you, Mom.
Oh, man, you teed it up for me. I wasn't paying attention. Maybe Shawn will say that to him later.
Yeah.
Thank you, my man.
This was great until Sid showed up. I mean, that's it. That's where I chose to end this. For our listeners out there, it does bear repeating. I left out a ton of detail from these very long promos. I thought both Bret and Shawn did a fantastic job here. It only really fell apart at the end with Sid. So, Ryan, what did you think of Ken Shamrock's interview and also the promos from Bret and Shawn that followed it?
Well, with Shamrock, it seemed like he was on his own here, and every question that he was asked, he kind of just reworded to, I didn't have a choice. He was unconscious. He says that like 4 different ways. But to the Bret Hart, I guess, speech that he gives here, I loved it. You know, when he starts ripping into America, when he says, I apologize for nothing, I popped when he said that. And he goes on and lays out his long list of grievances. And I think the length was needed here because, as you said, when he came out, this is Bret fucking Hart. He has spent so long as a babyface that it's going to take some browbeating of the fans to get them to finally hate him. And he did it. You know, it took a long time here, but as he just kept on laying it on thicker and thicker, less and less fans cheering, more and more booing. And then to Shawn Michaels' credit, as much as we have been shit-talking him about his bullshit knee injury, he came in and knocked it out of the park with his response.
Yeah.
You know, these two guys made me completely forget about all the anger I've had built up on Shawn Michaels, and boom, I am back excited and interested in this feud between these two.
Yeah.
And I love it. I thought, even though I don't know how long it was. What was it? A 20-minute talk by the time it was all done? Whatever. It worked. It did its job, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I will start by, unfortunately, bad-mouthing Mr. Shamrock once again. You guys already gave him...
We already postmarked the letters.
God,
you gave
him to get
the,
a reminder.
Yeah. P.S.
This will be my last podcast ever because you guys gave him the coordinates to my house. But he needs to work on his storytelling abilities. I think that he was... I think that he had the bullet points in his head and he wasn't going to get away from them.
What are you talking about? He was a referee. That's what he's hired to do. The guy was unconscious. What else was he supposed to do?
P.S. Ken, he also thinks you're stupid.
Anyway, moving right along to the Bret Hart interview, I thought was fantastic. I agree with you, Ryan. I think it does need to go a little bit long because Bret's doing this all by himself.
Yeah.
You know, this is not like the Hulk Hogan heel turn where he teams up with these two scumbags and you know immediately, oh my God, he's a heel now.
Yeah.
So there's that too, and Bret has been loved for years, and they're going to have to just keep bringing that home every week that he is a heel now. And it has layers to it because now he hates America. Mm-hmm. So those other fans can still love him while the American fans can boo him, which is very unique and says some really great things on this interview and really just hits every point, unlike Ken Shamrock.
Jesus.
I love it when he calls Stone Cold Steve Austin a lousy, stinking hyena. He's said that a few times. I don't know why. That's just so funny to me. And Shawn Michaels comes out and does a fantastic job working with Bret here. Honestly, this is probably the only time this is the best version of babyface Shawn that we've seen tonight. This appearance made him look more like a babyface than we've seen in the past fucking 2 years or whatever, however long he's been a babyface. So
I did really like his one dig at Bret, making fun of how serious Bret takes the business, calling him the Mark Man.
Yeah, we're getting some of that already, so that's good. But yeah, this was really good. I really enjoyed this a lot.
Yeah, I especially liked, well, I should say I really liked all of it, but what got Shawn over here for me as a babyface, Joe, like what you were saying just now, was whenever he pointed out that between the two of them, Shawn Michaels is at least upfront and honest about who he is and what he does, which seems pretty accurate. I mean, just everything we know about him is, yes, he is a shithead, but he doesn't really pretend to not be a shithead.
Yeah.
You know, he's always been pretty straightforward about it. And I appreciated him making that point to Bret Hart. And Ryan, I really appreciated you pointing out that Bret needed the time to do this because that's something I hadn't thought of. And you're absolutely right. You hit all the great points with that because you're absolutely right. How long at this point since 92, a babyface, right?
Well, longer than that. Probably. I mean, he was Intercontinental champion before that.
Yeah.
Hart Foundation tag team was a babyface later too. So yeah, it's been a long time.
And in what amounts to probably about 15 minutes, he completely upends close to a decade worth of history and completely succeeds at it. Hits that fucking ball out of the park.
And on top of, having to do it just because of how long he's been a babyface, also the turn happened at a pay-per-view. So we got to make sure the people that didn't see the pay-per-view understand how big of a heel turn he's taken as well.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing that it's doing that is unique is it is putting Austin over even more.
Yeah.
All this stuff that Bret is doing is just making Austin a bigger fan favorite.
Yeah.
And then even Shawn Michaels brings that up. He's he's saying, I might not like the man either, but after that, you have to admit he's one tough son of a bitch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. A lot of Stone Cold stuff out there, signs in the crowd, amongst other things. But let's keep it moving here to our next match. Rocky Maivia defeats Leif Cassidy by pinfall in 2 minutes and 22 seconds. We went to commercial during Rocky's entrance and came back to the match already in progress. Bret Hart then came down to the ring amidst a chorus of boos, really hammering home that heel turn. Bret joins commentary, and after some exposition from Bret and Vince, we got a split screen showing Shawn Michaels being carried out of the arena with a cartoonishly large bandage and probably ice pack wrapped around his knee. The sight of this causes Vince to yell, "You're flushing your legacy down the toilet, Bret!" And Bret does a great job again here with everything he's saying, the way that he's responding to Vince. Zero focus was on the match here, and then the match was over with Rocky getting the pin. Couldn't even tell you how. Bret jumps into the ring after that and takes out Rocky's leg. That gets Bret a thumbs up from Leif Cassidy on the ramp afterwards. Bret Hart then pauses to give the middle finger to a child. And that's it.
What a privileged kid. What a fucking honor that would be.
But yeah, that was it. This wasn't a match so much as a way to keep going with Bret. Joe, what did you think of all of it?
I mean, the stuff with Bret was really the main focus here, and it was fantastic, I think. Again, flipping off that kid was just beautiful.
Stroke of genius.
Yeah. But my favorite part was as Bret was walking away, Vince says, "The United States, he says we glorify violence." Well, some of that is true, but only some of it.
Was there a match? I don't remember it. I don't think I have a single note about the match, but as we said, this is just furthering Bret Hart's heel turn, and it works great. Flipping off the little kid, it works all over the place, and I loved it. Yeah, this was just a continuation of the speech, basically, that just happened. They decided to throw a Rocky match in there, probably for the vest that's being forgotten, because we probably just would have heard some "Die Rocky Die" chants if they focused on it too much.
He can't have matches longer than 2 minutes ever again.
And you can't have any focus on it either.
There's safety issues.
So Bret Hart came away the winner here, not Rocky.
I'd argue that kid came away the winner because...
You're right.
I mean, he got flipped off by Bret the Hitman Hart.
He's going to cherish that forever.
Whenever the camera panned over after Bret flipped him off, you saw the kid's face, and there was definitely a little grin there, and it looked like the kid said something along the lines of "go fuck yourself" to Bret Hart. So that kid couldn't have been any more than like 12, 13, I think. Good for him. Man, what a night of memories.
Very jealous.
Yeah, what a memory. Maybe more so than that girl that got hit in the face with a cup of beer at the ECW show you were at.
Yeah, well, that was a WCW show, but yeah, no, even more forgettable by that point.
Yeah.
Well, let's leave all of that behind. We'll leave on the high note of Bret flipping off a small boy and go to commercial so we can come back to our final match of the night. Ahmed Johnson defeats Savio Vega with the Nation of Domination by disqualification in 8 minutes. The first thing I noticed when we came back from commercial was that they added the phrase "you're going down" to Ahmed's Titantron entrance video. Did either of you guys notice that?
I didn't, and I hate that you pointed it out.
Yeah, you get the "you're," and then the screen flashes to going, and then flashes to down. And then also, Ahmed was carrying that goddamn 2x4.
He didn't use it, though, other than to hit the ramp and it bounced back in his face.
Apparently, Farouk has a plethora of injuries from that Chicago street fight at WrestleMania last night, so Farouk was not here.
PG-13 was.
Yeah, I'm really trying not to go there. I'm really not, because this was terrible. They even changed up. They improvised. They added Savio Vega's name in the spot where they usually say Farouk in the entrance rap, and it was still terrible. So This is an honest question for either of you guys or any one of our fans out there, anybody that feels that they can confidently answer it. What the fuck is the deal with Ahmed Johnson wearing these pads all over his body? They're on his knees, they're on his thighs, they're on his biceps, they're on his shins, they're on his wrists. Did you notice that?
Well, hard not to notice.
They're all over him. Why?
He's swinging a 2x4 everywhere. It bounces back and could hit any part of his body.
I have no answer for you other than he maybe has bad joints. I don't know.
But he should probably wear them over the fucking joints then, and not like over the muscles.
Well, he's got some over his knees and elbows.
We know he has terrible fashion sense.
Yeah, so
true.
maybe it's just a fashion decision. He thought that this would make him look cool.
He's overdressed, like he told
Yeah.
Farouk.
Over padded.
Yeah.
Do you think it's maybe to make his muscles look bigger? I mean, he's already pretty jacked.
Does he need
Yeah, it
that?
doesn't
I mean,
really-
the guy is a fucking
I don't
hound.
know.
I think he's doing other things to make his muscles look bigger.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, again, any listeners out there have some insight, please send it to us. WrestlinRaw@gmail.com. In the match, there was nothing to write home about at all. Crush didn't enter the ring, and that's what prompted the DQ. I mean, that we got through 8 minutes of a match with almost no notes other than the fucking pads. Crush walks down to the ring, stands at the outside of the ring, and that's what draws the DQ. Unfortunately, that also prompted Ahmed to grab a microphone. Ahmed issues a very vague challenge saying that if he beats any one of them, they will all leave the WWF, which gets no real response from the nation. And then everyone walks out, including Ahmed, who can't even just carry the goddamn 2x4. Ryan, as you pointed out, he drops it there on the entryway, having it bounce back to him. Ryan, there's no way in hell that this should or could have been our final match. What a letdown, in my opinion, especially after all of the other good shit that happened in this episode. Not like there was a ton of it, but we had enough where, like, we had a little momentum going here. What did you think of it?
I don't know if I would say it was terrible. It was just extremely forgettable and not memorable in any way. You know, Vega, he always does a solid job, and Johnson is always going to do an, I don't know, not so solid job. And that's kind of what we got here for 8 minutes until Crush comes and walks down to cause the disqualification. And then, like you said, the confusing ending with Johnson making some type of loser leaves the WWF challenge, but we don't get any resolution to it. So yeah, none of this really felt like a final match. Nothing was really leading up to this that I cared about, and it didn't really end exciting at all either. So yeah, it kind of did miss on all cylinders, to be honest with you.
Farouk, they said that Farouk is injured. Is that what they said?
Yeah, a few injuries.
That's just the story that they gave here. Yeah, they didn't.
Okay. Do you guys ever hear, I think there's a story about Farouk Ahmed injures Farouk and then Farouk like fucking buries him on TV.
Yeah. I heard the story from Mark Henry.
Yeah,
is
yeah.
how I heard the story.
Yeah. So I wonder if that's when this was. I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens there. But yeah, this also seems like it's setting up the cleaning up of Nation of Domination.
Yeah.
Ahmed Johnson shifts into Monty Hall and makes a deal. I guess it's one of them has to go away if he beats them. So maybe they're just going to get rid of people like fucking Crush or.
But I thought he said like that they all had.
Is that what it is? I don't know.
It was so vague.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Either one of you could be right.
Plus, he's like all out of breath and shit. So
Yeah.
like, it's hard to tell. But I wonder if that's what they're doing. I certainly hope it is, because my God, the nation needs revamped.
So my wondering was, since we don't really care too much about breaking timelines, we assume people have a rough idea of what's going on here. My thought was, is Farouk going to come back and basically say, all right, but if you lose, you have to join? Because I know Johnson becomes a member of the nation at some point. So yeah, I in my head, I was thinking maybe that's going to be the response is, okay, if you win, someone leaves, but if we win, you have to join us type of a thing. And then he joins. I don't know. I can't remember how he ends up in the nation, just that he does.
I'm pretty sure that it's after Crush and PG-13 and them are all gone, because I want to say I remember seeing like still shots of the Nation of Domination with Ahmed in it, but he's also standing there with like The Rock. It's after The Rock joins the Nation of Domination, and I could be off with that.
Got to take out the trash first.
Yes. Yeah. Somebody get Drosy in here. All right. Let's go to
number 500.
The final segment of the episode here. Paul Bearer was backstage waiting to talk to someone that is not Vince McMahon. Paul Bearer ignores Vince and then yells at Vince for bothering him. We break to commercial and come back to Vince McMahon in the ring. Vince is going to welcome the new WWF champion, The Undertaker. And then the bell tolls. Undertaker comes out. Taker had a weird look going on here. He had that leather Hellraiser robe thing, but then he was also wearing like a Ronnie Van Zant, Leonard Skinner cowboy hat on top of it all.
Yeah.
I had it marked down as 90s shitty pop rock hat.
Well, so at first I had it labeled as a Bret Michaels cowboy hat, but then I was like, no, that's not quite right. And like the more I thought about it, I was like, that's the exact same kind of hat that Ronnie Van Zant used to wear and Leonard Skinner. And I had to look it up just to make sure I was right, but that's what I ended up going with. The Undertaker addresses the creatures of the night here, and then things fall apart as the Undertaker claims to be a knight that will fight for the fans. The Undertaker also wants to thank Psycho Sid for having courage. The Undertaker puts over Mankind as the most dangerous person in the WWF. I hated all of it. This all felt scripted. None of this felt like anything that the real Undertaker would say, and it's all paying lip service to this championship scene that he doesn't even need. Like, I mentioned it whenever he won the title. The Undertaker, in my just personal opinion, does not need a belt. He does not need it for any kind of the storytelling that he does. But then Paul Bearer comes out to talk to The Undertaker, but at the same time, Mankind appears on the Titantron. This ends with both Mankind and Paul Bearer talking at the same time without really saying anything of substance, because it was almost like dueling commentary here. They were starting to talk over one another, and then they would pause, and then they would start up again talking over one another. And that is where we faded to black with no resolution to that situation at all. We never even found out what Paul Bearer really wanted. I thought this was terrible. And like I said, I hated all of it. I hate to say that about two superstars and a manager that I all love. Ryan, I wanted to go to you first here. As our resident asshole for The Undertaker, what is your take on all of this?
I fucking hated it. It was,
hated it.
Yeah. It was bad. Everything. I mean, when he came down with that hat on, I already had a salty taste in my mouth. And then the shit that he was saying here, like basically, I'm the people's champ type of a thing. And it's like, are these words coming out of The Undertaker? What the fuck was that? And like you said, it just sounded extremely scripted. Like Vince handed him a page and was like, here's what you're going to say when you go out there. Because none of it felt in character. None of it felt genuine. And I know you say he doesn't need a belt, and that's right. But with The Undertaker, there's a correct way to give him a belt. And I think they do it. Yeah. I think they do it correctly in a few years when he turns heel and the whole ministry thing. That was the right way to have The Undertaker as champ. Not this, not this, whatever the fuck this was. And then the way it ended, like you said, you have three people involved that I absolutely love, but it ended so confusingly with just everyone talking over each other and then just fade to black, tickle our taint with something else, like completely confusing. And yes, I fucking hated all of it.
Yeah, I think this is a prime example of a guy who just doesn't need the belt. I think this was a good example of why.
It ruins him.
Yeah. It feels really weird to say that, but it's true. It's damn true. This promo was bad. Like you guys said, it seemed scripted. It was just not good. You know, I was like, okay, thank God Paul Bearer is coming down to interrupt this and we can get some sort of substance here and some sort of story between Mankind and Undertaker headed into their match. But more live show blunders. It gets all fucked up and we have no idea what's happening. There's really nothing to say about it. I have no opinion on Paul Bearer, Mankind, and Undertaker because they just fucking cut it off.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the only clear thing that I was able to get from this was whenever Paul Bearer first came out, he said something along the lines of, "I know you want to hit me, and you may get your chance," or something like that. And that's where it all just kind of went to shit. Yeah,
and The Undertaker is a guy that is, a lot of his gimmick is all about his look, and it looks like, I mean, he's with the Ronnie Van Zant hat, and the title just looks odd on him. Yeah. Like, him having that title just doesn't look right.
The way he looked when he came down, what kept on flashing in my head is he looked like a $2 hooker version of The Undertaker. With the eyeshadow looked weird, the makeup, the hat, just everything. Everything just wasn't working.
Maybe it was Brian Lee. Maybe it wasn't even Mark Calloway.
No, you know, he was acting like, rather than cut a promo for Vince McMahon in the ring, he was acting like he was thanking the governor of New Jersey for allowing the WWF to come
he was
back.
More in gimmick during that press conference than he was here at the end of Raw.
Creatures. Creatures of New Jersey.
As I said, we faded to black, so let's take it on over now to highlights and lowlights. Joe, please, why don't you go first?
Well, as much as I would love my highlight to be Earl Hebner getting knocked on his ass.
Honorable mention.
It is honorable mention to the stuff between Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. I just thought that those guys did a fantastic job with this. Just fantastic storytelling, adding to that heel turn for Bret. And really adding to Shawn's babyface, I guess, kind of build up to DX a little bit there. So that was cool. Low light is, I mean, there were a few things that I didn't like about this. Honky Tonk Man, Flash Funk match, all that bullshit. But I got to go with the end. Just the WWF in general needs to work on their live show production. And just cutting it off like this was not very good.
Yeah, we're going to fall right in line. My highlight was the Bret Hart and ultimately Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels segment. I thought they both did a great job, and the WWF in general did a great job of showing the fans what they were to believe going forward. And the low light, and this is, I think, I mean, I'd have to go back and check, but I think the first time ever I'm giving The Undertaker a low light.
Oh.
Yeah, we have 3 of my all-time favorites involved here, but this final segment just fucking stunk all around, right down to the Undertaker's stupid leather hat that he came out with. Yeah, it was a low light, and I hate that I gotta say it.
Goddamn. Well, we're 3 for 3 on highlights, boys. Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, whether you want to call that a promo or call those like a confrontation, whatever, I call it great shit, pal. And with the lowlights, so many to choose from here, in my opinion. There were not too many things that really tickled my taint throughout this, but I had to go with, and as offensive as the ending was, the AAA 6-man tag match was especially extremely offensive to my sensibilities. A lot of rage watching that. A lot of hate. Anything could have been better than that, including fucking Undertaker Van Zant here. So, all right. Joseph, do you have any contemporary wrestling news from on and around March 24th, 1997 for us?
I certainly do. From the Wrestling Observer, I'm reading that Raw is now on a 7-second delay thanks to Bret Hart's colorful language last week. USA Network and Titan will be editing out the swearing, so they're operating on a 7-second delay. But that didn't stop them from showing Bret flipping off a young child this week. So don't be discouraged to hear that. Dave Meltzer had some comments about some of the matches tonight. Not all of them, but some of them. He said the Owen Hart and Bulldog versus Headbangers match, he gave it 2.25 stars. The Lucha match, he actually gave 2.75 stars.
Oh, fuck that. Wow.
He pointed out, he seems to think the problem with the AAA guys is that all of their costumes look the same.
Yeah, that's the problem.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
He also noted, he agrees with our highlight. He said the Bret Hart segment was the highlight of the show. I know you guys want to hear about the Slammy Awards because that shit was hyped up more than WrestleMania.
Yes, please.
The New Sensation Award went to Rocky Maivia. Dressed to Kill went to Sable. Match of the year was Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels with their Iron Man match.
Okay, I guess.
Best Hair Day went to Hunter Hearst Helmsley. The Loose Screw Award went to Mankind.
Okay. Sure.
Best Finisher went to Shawn Michaels. Sonny agrees. Oh!
Just gobble it, Vince.
Best Couple, Gold Dust and Marlena.
Okay.
And Sable was crowned Miss Slammy.
Ugh.
Also at the Slammies, Hunter Hearst Helmsley took the podium and said he made a remark at the podium saying that Sonny is only good for one thing, and I have a best friend who says that she's not even good at it. And Chris Candido was there in the crowd with Sonny while he said that. So Dave Meltzer says, it's one thing to be a high schooler and say that around your buddies, but it's quite another to say it on national television.
God.
And that's it for the Slammies. Now we'll end on a good note here that there is a good chance that Charles Wright will be returning. That would be the Fighting Machine, was the last time we saw him.
For the nation, right?
Yeah.
Right. He has not been wrestling. He has been managing a strip club in Las Vegas.
Ah, nice.
Yeah.
He may be returning, and that is where we will end the news.
Getting the stables full for the Ho Train.
Oh, yeah.
Well, good for him. That sounds like a good time. All right. Thank you, Joseph. Illuminating as always. And that's it, folks. We are done with this one. I want to thank you again for joining us. If you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can email us at WRASSLINRAW. Just add @gmail.com to the end of that to submit questions or comments. Check us out on social media and on every podcast subscription platform. While you're there, don't forget to follow and subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin Raw coming to you every week. Give us a 5-star review and tell all of your friends to tune in to the most unbelievable Monday Night Raw review podcast on the airwaves. Next week on Wrasslin Raw, we're going to take a look at the Raw that aired on March 31st, 1997, with matches featuring Jerry Fox, El Mosco, and many more. So, for Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin Raw.